welcome to the Cays Park Master Plan First Community Meeting. I am Tina Friend, I'm your city manager, and really honored to be with you and to be at this point in the process. So I have to say, I've been with the city about 2 years, and before I even arrived in Coronado, I had people booking appointments with me to talk about the Cays Park plan. So I know I've told that story before, but I just could not believe it when I came in, the passion and care about a park design, and I think this room shows that. So we have been down quite a road to have gone where we were when I first joined the city with more of an irrigation redesign and kind of a park planning overlay, to the community saying, no, we really want to imagine, envision, and really think about the possibility for this unique 16-acre park. So I'm very excited that we have the support of the City Council to go through this really in-depth visioning process, and really happy to announce that or to unveil that with you here today. So I'll just say a few things about today. So this is the first of 3 initial community events to talk about the design options and to get community feedback. This process is really grounded in feedback input. It will be a very iterative process. So the concepts you see here today we're very excited about, but we know they will change, and there will be a process to take in what you have to say and whittle down to what's eventually adopted by the council probably early next year. So there will be a lot more to come, a lot of opportunities, you'll hear about that. And so I will turn it over to our main presenter here in a moment, but I want to thank the city council members for being here. Council members, you have Councilmember Downey, Councilmember Donovan, Councilmember Tanaka, you have Mayor Bailey, I saw as well, and Councilmember Duncan is here. Now this is not a city council meeting, so they won't be presiding, they won't take in public comment, they won't be weighing in, so they're keeping their distance, but we're happy they're here because they care a great deal about this. So without further ado, I'm very happy to introduce Glenn Schmidt. Now, Glenn Schmidt is a principal of the Schmidt Design Group, and this is really the premier park design firm in the San Diego region, probably in California. He's done a lot of work in Coronado already, so has a very strong sense of our themes, of our ethos, and has just really strong resonance with our values here in Coronado. So Glenn and his team took on this project and has worked remarkably hard over the past few months to develop 4 design options for you. And I don't want to steal any more thunder, so without further ado, turn it over to Mr. Glenn Schmidt. Welcome.
Hello everyone, thanks for coming, and thank you Mayor and City Council for being here. Really appreciate you taking the time. We have a lot to show you tonight, so fasten your seatbelts. We've been working very hard. Before I get going, there is going to be a tea and coffee setup in the lobby. There's water there. The restrooms are also in the lobby. I also want to say thank you to Tina and her staff, Tony Winnie especially, and their leadership for this. And they really want to listen to the community, and it was really fun to work with a city staff that feels that way. So thank you. And for Tim and Leon as well, you all have been really helpful. We have a few staff members I'd like to introduce. Chris Tiffany is our project manager here. We got Angela, Laura, Mao, Julian, and JT. And they will be manning the stations, and I'll explain what I mean by that in just a moment. So here's our agenda. I'm going to talk a little bit about our process, and then show you our 4 schemes, kind of explain them, go through it. It's going to be pretty quick, so there's going to be a lot of time we're going to leave at the end for you to go to our different stations. And each station will have the plan view, a bird's eye perspective, and we're going to be asking you to provide comments, and we'll have sticky notes at each of those stations. And we've got kind of a pro and con line on those boards. And the green for the pro, the yellow for con. And so we'd like for you to tell us what you like about each of the concepts and what you would prefer not to have in each of those concepts. So that's our goal, that's where we're headed. We also have some comment cards that you can write even more information on about each of the schemes. And we have some kind of cheat sheets. We have some spreadsheets showing each of the concept and what are the different amenities in each concept. So lots of information for you. So let's get going. Tina touched on it. We've got some public meetings coming up in the near future. We have what we call a pop-up event. That's an on-site meeting where we're going to take our boards and we're going to take them out to the site. And that is on September 27th. And then on October 5th, we're going to be in the Coronado Library. That'll be the same thing. And those will not have a presentation. It'll be purely drop in and give us comments. And then we're going to be going to the Park and Recreation Commission October 10th and on to City Council sometime in November. And once we get to that point, then we will start looking at narrowing it down to one preferred concept. So we're at 4 now. We have a lot of different ideas, as you'll see. So our process was, we called it Discover, Explore, and Envision. And we went through the Discover phase, and we're in the Explore phase. The Discover phase is really listening and learning, surveys, meeting with community members, and learning all about the site and the issues associated with the site. Our Explore phase is what we are in now, which we have developed 4 different alternatives. And if all of you know the process, City Council asked us to look at 4 concepts that have include 100% of the active field play, programmable field play, 75%, 50%, and 25%. So you have a descending amount of open space for active field sports in the different alternatives, starting with 100% of what's there now. We, during our Discover phase, we spent a lot of time meeting one-on-one. We met with representatives from over a dozen different organizations here in Coronado. We took tours, we looked at all the data from the last effort and the survey that Cays residents did. We did a lot of research. And then we also conducted a survey and hired a great company, True North Research, who develops these statistically defensible surveys that they say that the accuracy is up to 4.4% margin of error, so quite accurate. And they surveyed 464 households and randomly. And that survey is available on site. It's quite detailed. There's a lot of information. We're not going to go through it all, but just kind of hit a couple key points of that. The main one was the question, what improvements do you want to make on Cays Park? And this is very important. Now, the dark line is high priority. The medium blue is medium priority. And you can see that we have 22 different items there. The number 1 was shade trees. Number 2, paths for walking and jogging, and bicycle amenities, including bike racks, children's play equipment, dog park, view areas, and places to watch the sunset, multi-use sports for soccer, football, rugby, and lacrosse, picnic areas, additional restrooms, and so on. And as you read through those, pretty much every one of those is in our concepts, at least one or more of our concepts. So really excited to be able to bring to you the things that people want to see in Cays Park. Also ask a very important question, which is on everyone's mind. What do we do with the dog park? Do we enclose it? Do we enclose it with a fence or a natural barrier? And that was a question in the survey. And you can see that 83% of those that responded want to have some barrier in the dog park. And we have an idea that we're going to show you where we think we can meet both of those goals, a natural barrier and an enclosed space. So, on to Explore and our concepts. Here's our existing conditions, as you know. A lot of grass, a lot of open space. And we went through a real thorough evaluation of the site and looked at all the various conditions. There are 4 fields out there, a large field, 2 medium, and a smaller field is what's being used globally. And that's what we use kind of as our basis for showing you what kind of fields can happen out there. But one of the things we want to point out, which is really interesting, is that there's red curves, as you probably know, along Coronado Cays Boulevard. And we didn't quite understand why that is. So we've explored that. And in the upper left there, you can see that the dog park area is about 1.5 acres west of the pathway there. And north is to the right, as you probably would assume. So, and then what we did is we outlined what do we mean by 100% of active field space. So that darker green is what we mapped out as active field space, which is 7.45 acres. So as we look at these different concepts, we're taking that as our basis for 100 and then going down from 70 to 550 and 25 from there. So this is the kind of globally the size of the active field as you start reducing it from 100% down to 25. Just to give you an idea of scale. So here are 4 concepts. And we oftentimes don't go to this level of detail, but we thought it'd be really fun and interesting for you all to see these and to provide perspectives and simulations so that you can see them in 3 dimensions. And I'm going to go through each one of them. And there's a lot of ideas. So if you can think of this as a menu, and you're looking, well, gee, I like that part of that concept, and I like that part of that concept. So we can actually combine these and use the improvements that you most like or preferred when we head toward our preferred concept. And then we also incorporated themes. So we're trying to create stories. We want to tell stories in our designs. And we want to create parks that really have a sense of place. And they're grounded in history and in Coronado. So there's a few things that we did on all the concepts that I want to show you. First of all, the large cul-de-sac there is about 160 feet long of pavement, and we're wondering, do we need that? And we talked to the fire department, we looked into engineering, and it was determined we really don't need that big roundabout. So in all the concepts, we've removed that and taken that land back for parkland. We are that yellow area there that is east of the firehouse. We're not doing anything there. That's to be set aside for maybe future improvements to the firehouse. So that's for expansion of the firehouse. And then I mentioned the red curves. Well, there's the red curves. And we studied this, and the lanes are only like a foot or two too narrow to provide parallel parking on the street. That's why they're red. So we worked with our engineers, Somas Engineering, who had this great idea that what we could do is, in these areas that are shown in yellow, there's a 3-foot wide raised median, has no landscape or anything in it. If we remove that and just stripe it, we can have parking all along those areas that are now red. And that would gain us about 40 parking spaces for the park. And we have that on 3 out of the 4 of the concepts. We have an infield skinned area that is used for softball or baseball practice. We have shown backstops in 2 of the concepts, but I just want to let you know that we don't have, that's one of the few things that we didn't include in our 4 concepts, is the skinned infield. But we're happy to talk about that and see if there's a lot of folks that really want to have that included. And then the idea of the enclosure for the dog park. What is a natural enclosure? Well, we feel that we can put a 4-foot fence and surround it with landscaping and it will disappear. So you have the appearance of a natural barrier, but there is actually something that will stop the dogs from leaving that space. So we feel like we've kind of met both of the goals of a natural enclosure and a fenced enclosure. And that's included on all the concepts. We also were looking at this wall that's on the west side there that grows to about 8 feet tall. And we're saying, well, can we cut that down and open up views to the ocean in portions of the park? So all of the concepts have included modifying the existing wall and bringing it down to open up views to the ocean. Also, what's very interesting is where there's a jog in the wall, the property line actually continues. So this is actually city property out here. So in each of the concepts, we've actually eliminated the wall in certain portions, and we created a cantilever deck out to enjoy the sunset and enjoy the views to the ocean. That's in all the concepts as well. So we were asked to think outside the box, and it's going to get even more outside the box, so hang on. So in all the concepts, we want to incorporate public art and incorporate interpretive education, again, to kind of connect people with the history of the place. So here's our 4 options again. I'm going to go with them one by one. And as I mentioned, each has a theme. So for the 100, we call option 100, 100%. Our theme is the beauty of the islands, Cays and Coronado. So you often refer to Coronado as the island. And the Cays is very associated with the Caribbean and with the neighborhoods associated with Jamaica. And we have the Coronado Islands offshore, so islands is the theme. And what we are proposing is that a big part of that connection to the Cays would be to celebrate the beautiful architecture that's in the Cays. So you have your white walls, you have your hand-painted tiles. We're proposing to add that as features in the park on the 100% plan. And you'll see that we have actually images of islands as you go through and mounds that represent the islands too. So islands is the theme, but 100%. Here's the 100% plan. And you can see here, it's hard for me to go over every little detail, so you'll be able to go to the stations and look at them closer. But you see that the cul-de-sac's gone. And one of the things we did, this is where it gets even more outside the box, is we said, how can we get more land in this 100% option? Because once you have 100% of the field and the courts, tennis court, pickleball, basketball, all those things in parking and dog park, there isn't a lot of land. So what we're proposing as a thought, this only this one concept, is what if we narrow the road to 2 lanes, Coronado Cays Boulevard, and include 3 roundabouts at the Coronado Cays, the Causeway, as well as the Half Penny Lane and Bahama Bend, which are, so here is smaller roundabout here, and then a large roundabout. So there's no stopping in traffic, it flows. So if you can imagine, if you've ever driven down La Jolla Boulevard, it's a very, very, very busy street, and it has this configuration. And doing that, that allows us to gain about 1.7 acres of land for parkland. So if you think of the value of 1.7 acres and what we can do with that, it's really quite interesting. We also use that extra space, it's about 30 feet all along the front of the park, to add more convenient parking locations. So we have actually head-in perpendicular parking here, which is near the courts. These are the existing tennis courts that are remaining where they are, improving the pickleball to 8 courts. So we have 4 tennis courts, 8 pickleball. We have our basketball court there. We're using the enclosures to create storage back there. But we have perpendicular parking along here. We have a parking lot here where the existing parking lot is realigned. And also, by the way, there is a drop-off along one side of that parking lot. So we're not losing the drop-off that we have in that cul-de-sac. We're just moving it over a little bit. And then we also have parking anchor by the dog park. And so if you kind of zip back and forth between existing conditions and this new configuration, you can even look at the street as I switch back and forth from that, what that does, what the opportunities that provides us in the park. So also wanted to show you that we are including all 4 of the fields that are existing, and we're showing those on that open space there. So kind of zooming in a little bit closer on the north side, I mentioned the courts here, the parking, and we have a children's play area here. We have a fitness hub area and some overlook decks here. We've got a sunset hill, and we've got a kite hill over there. And then looking at the central core here, here's that parking lot with the drop-off here. And then here's the existing fire station. In this case, city wanted to have a maintenance building, and so we're putting the maintenance building here on the north side of the firehouse. And then we have a totally remodeled new restroom that's larger, that provides a lot more facilities for folks. But as you get into this section here, we've got games, we've got picnic areas, we've got shade throughout. And then that area, the overlook area that I was talking about, we have buffering along the street. We have shrubs along the street to stop balls from rolling into the street. Whoops, sorry. And then this is more of the southern end. You can see the off-leash dog park here. The off-leash dog park, in every case, is a little bit bigger. than the existing 1.5 acres. And so then go to the plan, you can kind of see some of these things a little bit closer. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. But these are these islands of planting and pavement all through here. That theme is in the playground. Mounting here, the decks are actually have our abstractions of Coronado Islands shapes there, overlooking the ocean. And there's shade and places for people to sit at every one of the amenities throughout. We also have, in all these schemes, we're looking at routes where you can walk a circuit, a loop around the park, and we have fitness equipment in all of them. So some of the key features here are that the dog park expands from 1.5 acres to 1.65. The active field area is the same. We have 4 tennis courts now instead of 3. We have 8 pickleball courts. We have added 9 spaces through all that, even with narrowing the road. We have the full court basketball. We don't have the skating field, but we do have a backstop in the turf, so you can practice softball. And we have the restroom building, it includes games and fitness. So that's option number 100. Now we're going to option 75% of active play. And here, it's like celebrating the wonders of on the water. So, Cays is such a maritime-oriented place. And this is an aerial of some of your docks and piers. And the inspiration of the vessels, the military and private vessels throughout, the beach and such. So we used on the water as inspiration for this concept. And as you look at it, we have not changed the road, except for those little islands that we've added parking along the street. So same configuration, basically, as what you have with more parking on the street. And here we have 3 fields. There's the 3 fields shown. And then going kind of from existing to proposed. With the 75, we have a little more room to create sort of more passive experiences throughout. And one of the big moves we made on this one is we separated the tennis and the pickleball. So it's our understanding with staff, when they did repave the existing courts, they're finding a lot of degradation and there's a lot of problems with the courts in the long run. So they're going to have to get replaced at some point in the future. So that gave us the freedom to think about, well, could we move them around? And so by separating them, we create this really beautiful corridor and view corridor here. We tuck the tennis up against the wall on the west side. Then the pickleball is here just north of the firehouse. And that firehouse is kind of a big barrier anyway, the fence and the building. So having some fencing there seems like it's not going to create a lot of disruption. So we have pickleball, we have our maintenance building here with the maintenance building here is combined with the restroom in this location. And then we have the storage back here. So similar kind of thing where we've got parking lot and drop off. In this parking lot, we're actually starting at the causeway and then going all the way down to Halfpenny Lane. So this is a linear parking lot that exits here, but it's 2-way. And it also, again, has drop-off all along, right, for people. And here we have notice that our shade structures are sails, and we have like masts that come above them. So we have this real kind of maritime character with the shade structures, which we're excited about. And then, again, kind of going back and forth to existing and proposed here. Fields as I had shown you. And then zooming in a little bit on the north side, here are the reconfigured tennis courts. And each of them have a little shade area, social space. And then we have the streets coming around. We've got a little plaza here for bike repair. We have a loop around this larger field area. And then moving to the center core here, You can see we have a children's play area with the sail tree structure. And here we put in sand. We have sand volleyball court here, but also it's right by the playground, so it could be a place for the kids to play in the sand. So when people aren't using it for volleyball, it's multi-use. So you can have it be like a little beach there. And so we really think that that expands the opportunity for play here. And then we have our overlooks, and here, as a maritime theme, we are looking at a series of piers that the overlooks are representing piers. And this is another shot. So here's some piers that are intersecting. I'll show you that in the plan view so you can see a little bit better. And the dog park is off in the south side again, kind of triangular space, slightly bigger than the concept prior. And then in the plan view, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, you can see that we're proposing raised planters in vessel-like shapes. That kind of reinforces our maritime theme here with the canopies that are sail-like. And then our overlook decks, so this cantilever is out beyond the wall, and it's kind of this series of piers to kind of remind us of some of the configurations in the Cays. And and there's a lot of detail that we're layering in. I can't get into it totally, but one of the fun things we thought is, well, maritime navigation oftentimes was by the stars, right? So we were thinking that with the cantilever deck, we could have holes in the deck that have lights that represent the constellations, like the Big Dipper, Little Dipper, and North Star, which is all a big part of navigation, maritime navigation. So layering in these kind of stories and interesting elements is all part of what we're proposing for all the concepts. And then, so kind of going through the key features here. Here, we went from 7.4 acres to 5.7 with the ball fields area. The dog park goes 1.5 to 2 acres. And we have tennis, we have 8 pickleball. Here we added 30 parking spaces. And then we have our basketball. We moved the skating field. We have 1 restroom, but we're expanding it significantly, combining it with a maintenance building. And here's another feature that we added is we are making a connection to the bike and pedestrian path on the Strand Highway. So we have a connection to Nature's Bridge to Discovery here. You can ride your bike out and get onto the Nature's Bridge there. And we have that on 2 of the schemes. 2 of them we don't have that. And we have games and fitness on this one as well. The third concept is the natural and cultural wonders of the Silver Strand. And this is near and dear to our heart. We worked on the Nature's Bridge to Discovery many years ago and just learned how interesting the Silver Strand is and how many really fascinating natural features are there. So we want to try and pick up on that. One of them that really fascinates me is that the Russian spring. You have groundwater in Coronado and a spring that was here in the Cays and one up at North Island. And this one in one of your neighbors let us know that it actually outlets on the south side of your community. So it's still there. So some really interesting things. So this is a 50%. You see now we have all the active on one side. And that's the kind of unique thing about this site is that we were using the firehouse as kind of a fixed element. Even though we've removed that cul-de-sac, it still kind of creates kind of 2 sides to the park design. So we have our fields here on the southern side, and then on the northern side here gives us an opportunity to create really beautiful natural trails and open space. We want to have mounds. We want to kind of be reflective of the dunes on the Strand. So dunes and mounding all through a series of pathways. In this case, we put the tennis courts adjacent to the firehouse. In this scheme, we actually fit 12 pickleball as an option up against the wall on that west side. But you see we have this big open passive area, and in that we've got playgrounds and fitness areas and picnic and all sorts of really interesting things. So here's our before and after concepts. It gets more dramatic as we go. We have 2 fields that we can fit there, the full-size field and then the one that's medium-sized that they're using now. in this scheme. So 2 fields in this scheme. And then looking at that northern section there, you can see the various pathways. You'll be able to see this even better when you go to your stations. And then the central core here. And in all of these, there was a discussion during the survey as, do you want to have movies in the park or concerts or any kind of activity? So we're showing in all these, we have these shade elements on either side where you can set up a stage, you can set up a movie night. So there's a lot of flexibility. This is showing like a little art show or something for this open turf area. And this is the central core. Again, we have the overlook deck here, and it's separated by this string of native material that wraps through. And then on the north side, we have our dog park as well. I'm sorry, the south side. So this is the plan view of that, and kind of zooming in on it, you can see that we have actually some mounding. And in each of them, we're trying to create like this Sunset Hill and Kite Hill in that area that people could enjoy. And we're going to just go to questions in the breakout.
Are they DG paths or concrete?
Mostly concrete with DG combination. Yeah. So both DG and thank you. Good question. We'll have a series of hierarchy of different types of pathways, more kind of rustic versus concrete throughout. So if you want to stay on DG paths in this scheme, you can do that throughout most of the park. And then here, we made a little change in that we have 2 half-court basketball instead of 1 full court on this one. So again, it's a menu, and you can pick out the features that you like, and that's what we're looking for from you, is to give us that kind of feedback. So here we're down to a little under 2 acres for the dog park, which is 1.88. We have 4.29 acres for the fields. The tennis courts are the same. We have pickleball at 12 courts, as I mentioned, and the various aspects that here. And here on this one, we have 2 restrooms. So we're eliminating the restroom here. That's going to be a maintenance building. And we have a restroom here, then another one on this side, on both sides. So there's 2 schemes with 2 restrooms. There's 2 schemes with a single expanded restroom. And then the final concept is the 25% option. And here, we wanted to celebrate the wonders of flight. Natural flight with birds, but as you all know, you are the founding, Navy aviation was founded here, is what I'm trying to say. Thank you. So celebrating that, you even had a seaplane fleet here, which is really interesting. So we're celebrating flight here. And one of the inspirations was the North Island. You can see the runways are shown in yellow. We took that and overlaid that onto the park. And these axes are representative of those 2 runways. And they end up at Halfpenny and Bahama Bend. And then align with our overlooks. And then we have a central core axis right there. So kind of a fun connection to North Island and the history of aviation here in Coronado. Here we have, all the courts are consolidated on the west side. We have a large children's play area, and we added a pond that kind of celebrating the Russian Spring. That could be also a model boat pond, and includes a walkway across to overlooks here. In this case, we have an oval shape for the fields, and this again before and after. And here's so this one just includes 1 large field, but the dog park is expanded even more in this one. So up on the north side here, you see lots of opportunities for picnicking and walking, hierarchy of different pathways throughout, and then the central core here with those interesting axes. We thought it might be fun, instead of just conventional shade structures through the core here, is what if our shade structures were inspired by bird shapes? They're very sculptural, and they kind of represented kind of a flock of birds flying toward the ocean here. So that's what we're showing there. And many of the similar features that we have in many of our others. We have 2 restrooms, one here, maintenance and storage here. And here we added more parking lots too, I should say. And so if I can go to that. So we have a parking lot here, and then one here at the central here, and then we have more parking. Oh, no, we don't have more parking. We have just those 2. There's so many ideas here. I'm getting confused sometimes. Sorry. So here's that central core with the model boat pond and that walkway across it, and these axes coming in to the park. So that is the final one. Here's a close-up. You're going to see the illustrations of those bird-like shade structures and sculptural running through the park. And then this is the final one. So here the dog park jumped from 1.5 acres to 2.52 acres. Active field area drops down to about 2.5 acres. Same amount of tennis and pickleball. And we added 38 parking spaces and a full basketball court and 2 restrooms and fitness trail. So, that was a lot to show you. And so we're really excited that we can create something that's going to create a sense of place and really represent Coronado. And again, this is a big menu of ideas. So what we want you to do now is we're gonna just take about a 5-minute break and set up boards. So the illustrations that I've shown you on the screen here are gonna be at the various stations. We'll have one station for each of the 4 concepts. And then we'll have one station that talks about those design themes that I talked about for each one. Again, for you to give us feedback, pro and con, and everything else that you can think of. And also just want to recognize that all this will be on the website. Here's the project website here. And that, as I understand it, Tony, will be on the website sometime tomorrow, correct? Yes? You can also email. We have a project email as well. And so we're looking forward to getting your feedback. Happy to see you out on the site in a couple of weeks as well and at the library. So this is just the beginning of getting feedback from all of you. And we really appreciate it. So let's get set up here.